to agree with my colleagues Ohito and Claiy. I think, according to me, the biggest story about these kind of scandals is actually yet to be told. Because to me, the biggest story is not about Tunoi, or it is not about Geoffrey Kiplagat giving out a briefcase, or etc., etc. The biggest story, according to me, is actually the state of affairs in our institutions. Because these are credible, they are expected to be credible institutions, at least going by the standards and the constitution that we voted for. But what is happening right now, I think it is a serious indictment, and that is what we should be focusing on.
Okay, Ohito, let me hear from Ohito in terms of what is the main thing that we should be focusing on as the media here. Are we running towards Tunoi per se as an individual, as opposed to looking at the whole setup? There is also unconfirmed allegations that this might not just have been money given to him alone, but the others who maybe would have participated. Are we chasing Tunoi in terms of the media coverage, as opposed to the whole institution, and looking at where the root of the problem is?
It's a very difficult terrain to navigate. One, you're dealing with the Supreme Court, which has 7 judges. And I posed the same question to Justice Tunoi. What happens when one of the 7 is accused? How do you feel as a bench? And then his answer was very curt. He said, when there is one rotten potato in a bag, then the whole sack stands accused. And that's a very strong sentiment. 2, the Chief Justice himself described the court that he is the president, that he is the chair, as, a cartel of sorts. 3, we have intervening factors like the great succession war in the Supreme Court, with nearly half of it having to go home, either before the general election or thereabouts. So, very many intervening things. Tunoi is one of the old crop judges, the most experienced of the current serving Supreme Court judges. And then there's the argument that they are more scholars than real grounded men and women of law on that bench. Those are questions that we need to deal with. That when we examine, when we do a forensic audit of the decisions of the Supreme Court, are we satisfied that this court has served this country well? 4, there is the legacy of C.J. Mutunga, a man who in his own class has tried his best in different worlds, now in the Supreme Court. What is he going to do? Will he leave early as he promised? And if he leaves, what kind of Supreme Court is he leaving behind? Or will he leave with a broken down Supreme Court? So there are very critical issues that we have seen. The reforms that were promised when CJ took over have hardly been seen at 20–30%. Those are critical issues. Why is it that judiciary is complaining that we have 2 sets of people? I was scanning through the Leadership and Integrity Act. Judiciary has not been approved as complying with Leadership and Integrity Act. Then where does that leave us? There are critical problems with that institution, and perhaps the entire judiciary that we must start addressing. However, my colleagues have done a fair job with difficult circumstances.
Okay, and also with bringing those to the front. Gathara?
Yeah, I was just going to add on to what especially Crispus has said, and this is in regard to the institutional failures across the board. We are the election is almost upon us. This is, we only have, about 2 years to go. The EACC is moribund. It's been accused, all over the place about corruption, about its stance and its performance during the last election. We've not had an audit of the EACC done. And now the Supreme Court. These are the 2 institutions that we really shouldn't be playing about with. Sure. They are the ones that were set up specifically because of what happened in 2008. And now it turns out that they are crumbling as well. Their credibility is crumbling, and that credibility is everything. If you go into another closely fought election where nobody trusts the EACC and nobody trusts the Supreme Court, then your election petitions, your presidential petition, as happened in 2007, would end up in court, it will end up in the streets.
And do you know what the men and women on the street are asking? If at all the allegation that a governor bribed at 200 million, then what would be the price of anybody above the seat of a
Precisely.
governor?
And my point here is that we need to see a much more robust response to these sorts of allegations, whether it's with the ACC or the EACC or the Supreme Court. Now we can't just sit back, as we have done with the EACC, and simply let the system work, so
Dictate
sort
to
of
us
grind
what
along,
Or the system will not work.
Precisely, So we need to see all of us get together and say, look, it doesn't matter that you're called your Jubilee or whatever, if things go to pot in 2017 or 2018, we'll all suffer.
Yeah.
So at the basic minimum, we need to audit the EACC and we need to make sure the Supreme Court is fixed.
Yeah, but you see, I mean, as a media actually, because that's what you're discussing here, I mean, the question is like, what can we do, or what have we, I mean, the most we can do actually, I think we are doing to hold these guys to account. But then now, we have limitations. We can make as much noise, we can write enough editorials, we can report on all these things, but actually it is not our duty to enforce. You see, so as I've said before, I mean, in Kenya, corruption actually is legal tender in this country. It's at all levels of governance and economy, because now you can see, I mean, based on the current allegations, you probably thought that that was the best place. But we can write about it, we can try and get all this information, we can probably try and even break into these guys, find out about the accounts, if this $2 million was probably withdrawn, and find out all these things that these guys have done. But then after that, what else? What can we do? I mean, it's the job.
In the end, let me very quickly. Let me just quickly respond. In the end, it's going to be Kenyans as a people who will need to hold the government to account, who will need to insist on action. But these people act according to the information they have. And this is what the role of the press is to articulate what those issues are, to give them the information so that they can stand up and say, this is not right, this is the dangers we face.
But haven't we done that? We have
and I
brought these
think
matters to the surface.
a large extent we haven't.
I
I think if you look at the issue of the EACC especially, and the fact that for a very long time this has just been allowed to fester, I don't see our editorials calling for an audit, of the entire electoral system, and yet it was all shown to have failed.
Yes, Crispus.
What we are saying is simple. Fine, the media has played a great role in these kind of issues. But you see, we want you to take the story forward. I think Ohito alluded to that, and pretty much he agrees that in spite of them having done enough, there is still actually room for them to interrogate most of the issues. I want to disagree with Claiy, because the media is expected to set the agenda. And I think Gathara has actually alluded to that. So you cannot sit here as an editor and start telling us that we've done enough, what else do you want us to do? I think
but then
we are losing the
plot. The question would be, what else can be done? You tell us what else that has not been done can be done.
Provide enough information, push the agenda, be seen to be actually the ones setting the agenda, not to leave it to the political class, because that is where we are losing the plot.
Okay. Yeah, can I just
yes, please.
Now, we are dealing with the people here who actually, you tell them a story about that person is a thief. Then the following day, that person goes to them and actually they mob that person. This is their hero. So what is the media supposed to do in that case? What is the media supposed to do? Because first of all, you have to understand the citizenry also. The people you're dealing with, it is you Kenyans. It is not, it is, don't try to treat it like, okay, fine. The media does not give us enough information. The media gives enough information. The media gave enough information on Anglo-leasing. The media gave enough information even, I think, on Goldenberg.
Not just that, Clay. Yeah. We have these EACC officers. We have DCI nowadays, Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Yeah. You know a constitutional office holder whose pay is 1.2 million shillings, yet the gentleman pays 20 million every weekend. I mean, do you need the media to remind you that you need to start a lifestyle?
And this person gives this money to people, and people mobs him. It's a societal failure. It's not the media's failure.
I think probably we are part of that society. And I think you mentioned something earlier on when you were talking about a politician who's actually been mentioned, saying that I think 200 million cannot fit in a briefcase. I think those are some of the issues that you need to integrate. Is it actually true? I think one of the media houses tried doing that, was it the previous day? And those are the kind of things that we are expecting from the media.
That is circumstantial. Let us look at the case before this committee now. What they are looking is did this judge become culpable? And what could have made him culpable? It was an election petition that he influenced the decision. So would one vote of an influenced judge, determine the outcome of the verdict?
You seem to be agreeing.
To 1.
You seem actually to be agreeing with what we are saying. Because we said we need to move the story forward, not to rotate around to Tunoi. And by moving the story forward, we said that we need to start even interrogating the institutions that are seemingly moribund. That's what we say.
The problem is that you people don't agree. I mean, the media doesn't. You still turn around and attack the media because you still turn around and attack the media for hounding your heroes and heroines,
At the end of the day,
that's how you guys turn it around.
What is it? The media has done their part. From what the gentleman here is saying, the gentleman of the press saying that we have brought the stories, we have put it in the public domain. It's now for the constitutional institutions that you're talking about to take it up from there.
Yes, but those institutions will not act, will not work unless pressure is brought to bear. And that's what I'm asking.
So is it the responsibility of the media to put that pressure?
Yes, I asked you. Why is it that the EACC is missing from the Tunoi story? Why is it?
EACC or IEBC?
EACC, IEBC is another one.
From the Tunoi story, why is there ODPP on it? Why is there fulmination from the press that these constitutional organs, which are given a job, paid for by us, don't seem to be doing it? Why is it that we tolerate, we still do, the fact that people who have been accused in the UK, of getting bribes, still hold public office, still hold office within the IEB? The point is this, we tend to report, and this is I think alluding to what Crispus had said earlier. We tend to report these things in a very episodic fashion. It's all thrown out.
That's how life is, Gathara.
Actually, life is not episodic.
Episodes.
Life is not episodic. These are systemic issues that we are dealing with, but we only see the symptoms, and we only report the symptoms. So how will the public deal with the system that underlies it? Because it is never exposed, it is never brought up. It's just a few spots, and we think, let's replace one guy, get rid of him, things will be fine. Yet we've done that every year.
Okay.
Every election.
Ohito, do you agree that possibly Gathara is almost alluding to the fact that we need to enforce.
We need to inform so people can enforce.
Yeah, the example I wanted to give before Ohito speaks, the example I wanted to give is, remember the time when all these stories about NYS came about? What happened the following day is that we had youth from all the informal settlements coming to town to protest against whoever was saying that there are problems at NYS. To show support for Anwai Guru. Now that is the problem,
and you covered that.
Now let me ask you guys. Now what was the media supposed to do? We put the
cover
information out there, and then
the demonstration.
these people come out.